Hello everybody, welcome to Behind the Fire. My name's Robert Snyder and today we're going over basil essence. So one of the coolest things in the kitchens is sometimes you stumble upon accidents and they really kind of help you. This recipe came from when I was working at this little bistro in Phoenix. We needed to make a vinaigrette on the fly and we didn't have any vegetable oil inside the kitchen. So believe it or not, I took a little bit from the clean fryer. Wasn't dirty, it was a clean fryer. I can testify to that. Poured the oil into the blender over the herbs to make this vinaigrette. Everything turned bright green. And when I blended it, the vinaigrette came out like super bright. So the very next day in the kitchen, I actually went back to the blender and I shoved it full of a bunch of herbs. I put the hot oil. I created sort of a shortcut to herb oil. So today I'm going to show you my process of doing this. Again, it's not the traditional way, but I think it actually sometimes can come out better than the traditional way. Normally, you're supposed to blanch all the herbs, dry them out, heat up your oil with the herbs in it, you steep them all together, and then you blend it, strain it. So to start everything off, we heat our oil. Today, I'm gonna heat my induction burner up to 8, full is 10, 0 is obviously low. We're gonna add the oil into the pan. That can be vegetable oil, it can be canola oil, it can be olive oil, it can be sunflower oil, it can be algae oil, it can be any oil you want. I generally tend to go towards sunflower oil, algae oil, or olive oil. If you're not familiar with sunflower oil or algae oil, you should check them out. They're a kind of cool substitution and they have really high smoke temperatures so you can cook really hot with them. As our oil heats up, we're going to prep the blender. So we're just going to put all the basil in it. The more the better, because what's going to happen is this is just going to impact the flavor, the intensity, and the color all together. Plus we have about 2 cups. I measure everything in grams to be precise, but we have about 2 cups of oil that's going to blend into here. And it's going to create quite the pulp together. And then we're going to strain it through a coffee filter and we're going to get this beautiful green oil as well. Today we're also going to add a few little herbs. I had a little rosemary in the garden, so I'm going to add this. I also had a little chive, so we'll put a little onion component in it. And I had a little fresh thyme. Now this is the point where I need to tell you that stems really don't matter when you have a Vitamix. If you have anything else, you might want to be weary of the stems, but if you have a strong enough blender that can get through basically everything. So we have our herbs in the blender, we have our blender top, and then we have our oil heating up as well. Towel is recommended dry because we're going to cover the whole of the blender. There is a good amount of steam coming out of the top of the blender on this recipe, so be very careful. Steam burns can be the worst. I've been a chef over 24 years and believe me, steam burns are unmatched. So I bring the oil to about 350 degrees. So we're going to remove our blender off the top. You could do this in the base of a sink if you want. Lower the better because you're going to have a little splash off and it's easier to control things when they're lower than your eye level. Makes sense, right? Okay, so now our oil is hit 350 degrees. This is hot oil. Be very careful. And we're going to take our hot oil and we're going to pour it right over the herbs. That snap, crackle, pop is completely normal. And what this is doing is it's heating up the herbs and it's blanching it essentially. You can see the steam is rising. This is your enemy. Don't let this burn you. This stuff is very hot. And when you put it on the blender, it's gonna basically plume it up through this little hole right here. Now make sure everything's clear, everything's safe, your burner's off. Now that our oil is in here, we're gonna put the top on very snug and we're gonna take our hot towel and put it on top. Make sure to blend it very quickly because you want the heat to kind of trap essential oils. So now that the oil's blended a few minutes, you generally want to do it like 2 to 3 minutes. That just ensures that all the little cells of chlorophyll are released into our oil. Now we're going to take whatever vessel you want. I have a measuring cup just because it's clear for demonstrational purposes, but you can use whatever you want. a little bit of strainer, and then I put a coffee filter in here as well. That way it just intensifies how much it strains it. So we're gonna set it up right here. I kinda like to lean it against my little blender. Then I take the top off right here. Be careful, it's still very hot. Remember that oil was 350 degrees, blending for 2 to 3 minutes probably takes it down to like 300 degrees. Actually, I measured, it is 181 degrees. So it went down quite a bit more than I thought. Back to this, we have our herbs blended with our oil, and we're just going to pour this into the coffee filter. Make sure not to go over the edges clearly. If you have more in the blender, you have a few batches to get through. As you can see, it's already starting to run through the filter. So this is a good batch. Sometimes you can have a little bit too much herbs in the batch and it makes it too thick and it won't go through. Now that our basil has been sitting a moment, you can tell it's strained into this. So what I'm gonna do is catch it on a drip back to the mother source, and then we're going to pour try to show you the intensity. And you can use this recipe for any type of garnish. You can use it on top of soup. You could like masquerade it around tuna. If you get some tapioca multidextrin, you can actually make a basil powder or like an herb powder. It's super simple. Just be careful with the hot oil and the blender. That's really the thing you gotta monitor, but everything else is pretty straightforward. I hope you guys enjoyed following along, and I hope this can advance your kitchen. Again, I'm Robert Snyder, and this is Behind the Fire. I need my tape. Everything's bugaboo. I need to tape everything on. That's what I need to do. Like Basil Brand. Just tape it all on. Tape it all on. It's everywhere. Tape this on. And that. This. Tape the whole show. It's tape. This is conspiracy.